Hey everyone, how you doing today? Well, the experimental 10.6 came out earlier today. I've had a little bit of time to play with it so far, to see what I could do and what was possible and what it would take to make some creations that I've got work in a CPU tier. Um, to start with, I took the smallest SV I've got, which is the Merc MX1. Keep in mind too, I'm noticing another issue with landing gear currently on the experimental version. As you kind of see what's going on with this ship, a bunch of these ships are landing strangely. Um, Maybe it's landing gear specific on what type of landing gear they're running on here. Like the landing gear the MX1 and MX2 had seem to land crooked, and the landing gear, like on one side or the other, seems to like go down into the ground. It's just a quick observation. I'm sure a bug. Um, oh, now this one's okay. It's weird. It's weird. Let me just move this one up again and re-land it. I think it's still doing it. Let me. It's just yeah, something wrong with landing gear. Specifically, this particular model, I don't exactly know what this one's called right offhand, but that seems to be problematic. But then again, the landing gear on, well, this new experimental thing I was just messing with, and like the Mercury ME seem to be okay. But as in results, MX1, I was fairly easily able to make it operate at Tier 1 CPU. Um, Now currently I just, is this the one I changed? Yeah, this is the one I changed, and I got it to 5822 CPU. Um, and basically all I really had to do to the ship is I removed a couple of the RCS that it had on it. Well, actually it had four. I removed three of the four. I think I could put one back. Um, Now, however, this ship didn't come stock with a constructor because at the time the constructors were costing cobalt, and I didn't. That's the only reason I left it out. Also, this ship was actually under 7500 CPU when I released it. So this one was pretty easy to make work at the first tier level of CPU. So that was encouraging, and it was the first one I was looking at. So then I went up to the next model up, which is the MX2. MX2 comes with more guns. Didn't have a lot of storage, but it had just a little bit more than the MX1 at 5K storage, and it actually relied on two old school cargo box, or I'm sorry, ammo boxes, which each provided 1,000 ammo storage. As in CPU ratings, this ship is at 20,000 stock, and at 20,000 in that vicinity would put it at a tier 3 CPU class. Now granted, I can remove a bit of RCS on this. Let's see, actually, what do we have? This has 10 RCSs. Who knows, I might actually be able to remove most of them, which would free up some CPU. And this one, I believe, also comes with a constructor. Yes, it does. So it has a constructor. And why I bring up the constructor is constructors are expensive now. They didn't used to cost anything towards CPU. But currently, a constructor is 2,000 CPU. And that kind of almost puts it at the point where if I were building a CPU compliant ship, unless it was a very high tier one and I just had some extra CPU that I didn't know what to do with, I would probably never put a constructor in one again, because that's really expensive. So, and also if I added in the additional weapons that were supposed to go in these mount points here, which I'd probably put in 4 rocket launchers, so I could engage smaller scale POIs. I believe there would be no chance of hitting tier 3 CPU. And keep in mind, this is not a warp ship and also does not have a shield. So it doesn't have any of those extra goodies. But, well, 25,000. Nah, okay. It could be a tier 3 CPU ship at, let's see, 24,000. If I could get rid of a little bit of the extra stuff. And it probably doesn't need necessarily 6 Gatling guns either, so I could probably yank a couple of those and then focus the rest on removing some RCS in places. And just to see what impact that had on it. Might already be below it again. Yeah. Okay, so it can be done. You can build some smaller ships, and you can even go bigger than this, because this was, say, tier 3 CPU, even with the rocket launchers installed and keeping the constructor. But this doesn't deal with warp, and it doesn't deal with shield. It's overall a pretty small ship. So then I started taking a look at the Merc AME. Now this one was built to be 7500 CPU. And I wanted to see how that translated to the new CPU values. So as is unmodified, this one is now at 44,000 CPU, which is putting it at a tier 4 level, which goes up to 48,000 CPU. So kind of a one-to-one translation. It seems like tier 4 is just a little bit above what 7500 CPU was in the past. And I think that's probably pretty fair. But granted, at this point in time, too, with the changes to the thrusters and things like that, you don't need as many RCS. In fact, I don't exactly know what kind of RCS I should be putting in a ship at this point in time. I used to kind of, you could look at your numbers and whatnot, but I guess I don't exactly know yet. Well, this ship also did maintain its warp, so I didn't remove the warp out of it. And it, what did it have for constructors here? Where are my constructors? Okay, it has 2 constructors. And I know those are expensive as well, so it probably doesn't need 2. If I was really going for budget and efficiency, I'd probably remove one of those. And let's see. But it's definitely in the tier 4 category. Going down to tier 3 with the AME, I think would hurt it too much, I think. And this ship was built to be efficient anyway, with the limited amount of thrusters it has on it and other things like that, and steel hull. It just wasn't a very, it's useful, I thought, but really I wanted to add more thrust to it and more fuel tanks and more storage, so it could actually do the job it was meant for, and be able to, scoop up a bunch of auto miner stuff. But I fear that wouldn't really be possible. Not with this design. Another design that was 7500 CPU was the Merc MX9. And this one was actually 400 points below 75, so it was about 7100 CPU, and I left out 400 so you could put in 4 additional weapons in these slots over here on the sides. And then it would still stay 7500 CPU, keeping all the weaponry on it. And now it's at 73,000 CPU, which is far above tier 4. Now this ship did have a warp and does have shield, and it is also hardened steel hull. It comes stock with 10 weapons on it. So 4 rocket launchers and 6 Gatling guns. Getting this one to tier 4, I don't think it would be worthwhile. I wouldn't really want to remove anything more on it, maybe besides a couple Gatling guns and a few RCS. And this is running 30 RCS. So let's say I took the RCS down to 10 and got rid of a couple of the Gatling guns. I think it would still far exceed tier 4 CPU. So Gatling guns are gone. Let me see if I can quickly find some RCS to remove. I put them all over the place. Actually, I think I did remove some RCS already out of this. That's why there's holes all over the place in it. Yeah, I did. Well, no, I had 30. Just hypothetically, what do the RCSs actually cost? $750 CPU per RCS. Huh. Okay, well that adds up pretty quickly. So 10 of those is, yeah, over 7,000. Alright. Well, okay, say, I guess if they were all removed, which is 27,000. I don't know. How does it fly now? Flies pretty good now. But then again, I'm this far over CPU, but if I could say get rid of almost 20,000 from RCSs, put me at a little well, put it this way, maybe I could get this ship to function at tier 4 CPU. I think that's a fair assessment. I would have to gut it some more. And God, what else could I cut on this? Well, you know, I thought this had a shield, but maybe I'm mistaken. No, I'm thinking the MX-10 had the shield. The shields weren't in the game when I built this ship, so no, it does not have a shield. It does have a warp, but no shield already. So let's see, I got rid of the warp on this. Oh, darn it, what just happened there? I can't seem to remove the warp core. I don't know what's going on. Can I remove any blocks? Something's wrong. I apologize. This might be a different bug, but I'm trying to remove some blocks and I hear the noise for it like it's removing the block, but it's actually not there. Hold on a second, just to find out. So this thing should have a bunch of holes in it right now by the amount of blocks I removed, so I'm going to just save it as something else. We'll call it temp. Just want to see if this is some kind of problem right now. Okay, so there's the one I was just... Oh yeah, and it's got this invisible problem too. Oh, I guess it showed up. Okay, that was a problem I had with the something else. And oh yeah, now you can see all the blocks that I actually removed when I was doing that. But that just wasn't updating on the existing ship. Huh. Well, I did successfully get rid of the warp core on it. So that puts us at 66,000. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think this ship could ever be CPU compliant, even though it was. This really sucks. MX-10 I looked at prior, and impossible, absolutely impossible to make this ship even close to CPU compliant at 48,000. Granted, this has both a shield and warp, and it has, I believe, 12 guns on it. I still try to be pretty sparing with thruster usage and things like that. I mean, I try to use fewer but bigger thrusters, and I did try to make the ship fairly efficient. But it also has a lot of lift thrust, so it could get off the ground pretty good and carry the amount of storage weight that it had, which wasn't actually very much at 5K, but yeah. So I would definitely have to cut it off. I think maybe it's possible to get the MX-9 to function at the highest tier CPU, but going to the MX-10 is just far too much for it. So you wouldn't be able to do a ship of this size with its features. And the features on it are just, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to have any less features for a ship of this size and what it was for. And it is kind of light on storage and things already, so yeah, just wouldn't happen with that. So it's a bit discouraging, I guess. But you know, CPU it's an option. It's when the official 10.6 comes out, it's not even on by default in the game settings. So whether or not these things work with CPU doesn't really matter in the end. I guess it depends if you want to use the CPU in your game or your server and you turn it on specifically to do that, then you will be forced to follow the rules, and it could make it fairly challenging. A ship like this would be way overpowered versus anything else in that rule set. So you'd be probably mostly going around with ships like the MX-1 or like these things over here, and maybe getting into the MX-2, and at a stretch maybe something like the Merc AME, I think, or the MX-9, I think, a little bit more stripped down model, if it's even possible, of that ship. So I thought I'd take a look at some other things I haven't looked at before, like the Ambry. This was specifically made to be a cargo ship at 7,500 CPU. It's lighter than my normal capital ship at utilities, especially docking room, and it does have 5 turrets on it. This is at 290,000 CPU. No, I'm sorry, not 290. 2.9 million CPU. And looking at the tiers of CPU, it only goes to 1.6 million CPU. So this ship also predated shields, so it doesn't have one of those. It does have warp, as I would think any capital vessel probably would have warp. As I can't imagine a capital ship without warp, quite frankly. That would be kind of not worthwhile, I guess. Let me see if I can remove the warp drive on this one without it screwing up on me. I did, okay. So what does that do for me? Not much. So as efficient as I tried to build this Ambry, and it was 7500 CPU compliant before, it well exceeds the top CPU tier allowed for a CV in the game with how it's currently is. Um, yeah, I don't know what to say about that one. That's well, it's not really doable. So I don't know how you expect to play the game that way. Let's take a look at the Wayfarer here. Now this was again 7500 CPU compliant. I left out some things on purpose so you could build it at a lower level, but left room to add that stuff in, such as a shield over here and a few other miscellaneous parts, including another power generator if you pop in a shield. This one was running two advanced constructors and two small constructors, and had a single 320k storage and 16k ammo bin. So and some extra cargo boxes. What are you at? Okay, CPU usage. You're at a little over 1 million. So the Wayfarer could be a tier 4 CPU ship, actually without changing anything on it currently. But what happens if I was to actually add a shield to it, like it was kind of designed to do? Oh, and the shields have different CPU numbers on them. Holy smokes. Okay, well, say we put in the cheaper of the two shields here. Still valid. Okay. Let me just outfit this with a couple other parts that it was meant to actually have. Let's see if these. Oh, okay. So this uses CPU now too. So 2500 for repair bay or armor repair. Do they charge for offline? Doesn't appear so. Let's find out. So we're at 106. Offline protection. We're still at, okay, so that's free. Okay. What do advanced constructors cost? 40,000 CPU. Wow. So they're quite expensive, aren't they? Warp core is 30,000 CPU. Quite the taboo on constructors, I would say. But I guess this is a fully functional ship, not designed for combat, made out of steel. Pretty small, just touching size class 2. Yeah, well, not size class 2 even. Basically, when I first released the ship, it was at size class 1.50, which was actually leaving it as a size class 1 on number. When I fixed it up to compensate for the, I think a change that was made in the game that made the heat and radiation go out a little bit further from the thrusters, I had to make some changes and add in some side blocks here and there and get rid of like the curvy wall and replace it with something like this, so I could keep you a little bit further away from parts to keep you safe from the issues there. Oh, you know what though? I forgot to add in another generator in this. How much do those cost? 6,200. I think I can pull that off. Basically, it needs this because I installed the shield. If I didn't put one of these in here, it would really overpower the thing. It's still, well, it would work, but it would suck fuel like crazy. And doing that, okay, so this is a safe bet that the Wayfarer, even though it's considered a cheap starter ship, equipped with some of the features it was meant to have put on it, it is close to the max of CPU limits. And this is without any actual like CV guns or much ammo storage, and not a lot of regular storage. Just taking a look at some of the numbers on some of the CV weaponry here to see what they cost. And it looks like I could probably get a couple CV guns on here. Oh, rocket turrets really cost a lot. Artillery are quite expensive, but yeah, they are the biggest turret. Got even 720 CPU for one of these sentry guns now. Yeah, I don't think this ship had any sentry guns or anything like that else on it. Well, this is just an assessment right now at kind of where it is, and it just came out today, and it's not tweaked, and I get that. And there's some weird little buggy things I've been noticing going on, too, with like core positions and where it saves blueprints at. So I think there's a couple other bugs that need to be ironed out right now too. But let's take a look at one last thing before, well, a couple things before I stop here. The basilisk. Now this is a little bit under construction at this moment. I kind of left it this way after the first tutorial because I didn't know the ins and outs of what was going to be happening. So this is at 160,000 CPU on HVs. The top tier is 40,000. Yeah, pretty much no chance this would ever be CPU compliant. It's too big, too many guns. And I don't even have all the guns on here right now. I actually stripped it. It's somewhat stripped from the original version right now until I put some turrets back and put some stuff back in the interior that I blew away already. So yeah, no chance on that one. So I am curious, though, how does the Tachi do? Now this one, I wasn't at all thinking about CPU when I built it. It's got quite a barrage of weapons, and basically I didn't hold back on really anything I wanted to add on it. I went with my standard 4 constructors for a larger ship, and actually some of my ships have 6 and 8 as well. But 4 320k storage and the farm and all that fun stuff. Bunch of guns. If this was a live stream, I would ask if anybody could guess what the CPU is on this. I don't know right now, but I hope I'm not. Oh, you know what? First I was like, well, this isn't far off, and then I was a number off here. So okay, it's 14 million CPU and some. And the max limit is 1.6 million CPU. Holy smokes. Yeah, okay, well, not a chance at all. Won't even be worth the time to bother trying to make it work with CPU because it never would, ever. Yeah. Things like this, if you're following the CPU, you could never do anything like this again in the game. But and that's the thing, and that's why I was at first kind of stressed out a little bit about the CPU. But at this point, you know, despite I might not really like it, I don't have to use it, and it's not going to be forced upon me. So that's all I really ever asked, and that's basically kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, well, for those who want to use CPU, they can. But, you know, I even thought about trying to do a playthrough of the game using CPU just to see how it would do. But I'm coming up to a blank on what I would even do in the game. Um, I couldn't follow my typical strategy of, you know, trying to build some kind of combat SV by around level 10 to 15 player level range, and going out and starting to engage POIs and things like that, and start getting the better loot, and then build up a CV or spawn in a CV and get off the planet, bringing my existing HVs and SVs I might have had with me to whatever next destination I decide to go to. Um, I don't think that would all work. Not at CPU. I couldn't make a CV to do what I would really need it to. I guess like the Wayfarer would handle it, um, because it does have the docking space and it does have some storage in it, but that's pretty limited on storage still with one 320K bin. How would I have more? I don't think I could put more on it. And then there was talk about, well, you know, you need more class-specific CVs, I guess, too. But how? How? How would you do that? Say I got an Ambry, which has more storage, and say somehow this Ambry was CPU compliant, which obviously can't seem to even come close to. Um, what would I do with it? How am I gonna like move from one place to another? I can't fly two CVs at the same time. So what do I do? Do I park my SVs and stuff on this ship, fly it out to a new destination, have a SV that can warp back to the other CV I've got for storage, park it on there, hop in this one, and also warp it over to the location I was trying to go to? I can't imagine doing that. In fact, that sounds so annoying. I don't think I would ever try to play with CPU because that's just kind of ruins the game. It just doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't want to play that way. Um, you know, might be a different story if I was in like a multiplayer server and there was like we're a fairly well organized team of like 3-4 players and we all got our own ships that kind of fit into the mix. So when we decide, hey, we want to go to Planet X over there and go start busting up POIs there or something like that, we could all like fly our own CVs that do whatever function they're supposed to do over to there and kind of work as a team to hit the challenges. And maybe that's what the CPU is all about in the first place. You know, that very well could be. But as in single player, nope, nope. That's just not at these numbers or anything even close to it. You know, honestly, if they up the CPU numbers by 2x on all the tiers, it still wouldn't be enough. It still won't even be close to enough to do the things that I would like to actually do in the game. So at where it's at now, no, there's no chance. There's no chance I would ever try this in single player. It wouldn't be fun. It would be kind of annoying, I think. I couldn't get much done. Would need too many little dinky vessels that couldn't do the function, any worthwhile function for me in game to try to do it. And I think after a few hours of gameplay that way and whatnot, I would probably just like, yeah, never mind. I'm gonna not do this anymore. Um, Now, something else I built on a side note, I put together a defense post for the Martians. I'm still kind of doing finalizing and tweaking on it. Might change a little bit of the block work here on the sides yet. But basically the idea is a solar defense platform. Um, and why it's so low the way it is versus some of the other ones I built in the past, like this one and the biggie over there, is I wanted this to be good against both HVs and SVs. And I put kind of a focus on ground stuff. And how the turrets are staggered on this, and if you look at what can shoot you at any angle, being like right on the ground, I think it would be very effective against HVs and of course ground troops and things like that. SVs as well. These turrets could, most all of them, depending on where you are, or a good number of them could shoot you at any point in time. Its only potential vulnerability would be directly above it. And this is where I always keep on running into these challenges because the turrets can't go up 90 degrees in a direction. It kind of leaves that vulnerable unless you put a couple turrets like up here on the sides, like sideways, so they're facing upward. But then you would only have 2 turrets that are really shooting the SV. If it was directly above. But for the SV to get directly above it, I don't know, I guess it could come in from way up in the air and then nosedive it this way. But if it came in at ground level, it would take a beating before it got there, hopefully. But this isn't terribly expensive either, and it's not running even close to maximum turrets. And what is its CPU? Yeah, this one's not bad at all. See, what I also noticed too on the CPUs is bases don't seem to bother me too much. But I'm gonna find that out real quick here. There's one last creation I want to spawn to see how it comes out, and I don't want to do the compound because it had so many of the parts that were omitted to keep the price down. But I'm gonna put in the Waypoint hangar. Pretty big structure. It's class 5. I don't know what's up with the spawning either. It's invisible again. Oh, and this one's fully invisible. Well, never mind. Anyway, I will be doing more tests and experimenting and attempting to build something CPU compliant to do a function in game I would like to see be able to be done. And if I fail at that, I don't know. I hope it gets tweaked. But anyway, y'all have a good day. Hope you enjoyed this. See you later.